Hola, muy buenas tardes. Bueno, de lo que estaba hablando el gobernador de la Florida, Ron DeSantis, es exactamente de lo que somos testigos en este momento y son esas labores de tratar de restablecer la situación, el tendido eléctrico, electricidad, obviamente para muchas de las zonas. En esta zona, por ejemplo, se fue la luz en las viviendas y los hoteles que hay cerca, pero ya hay muchos usuarios que ya tienen restablecido ese servicio. Por otro lado, por ejemplo, en este lugar el mar entró muchas cuadras adentro y lo que ha hecho es que se ha corrido toda la arena hasta este punto. Y precisamente lo que hacen en este momento todos estos camiones es tratar de bajar esos montículos, tratar de remover la arena para así poderle dar paso a los carros que traen a los residentes que quieren ver cómo quedaron sus casas. Porque recordemos que esta es una zona A, que es una zona de evacuación primaria. Quiere decir, al momento en el que se ordena evacuar, esta es una de las zonas que debe evacuar primero. Aunque hay gente que no hizo caso de la evacuación, lo cierto es que la mayoría de los residentes aquí sí evacuaron.
Supercharged by Florida waters as warm as a hot tub, Idalia arrived packing an almighty punch.
Oh, there goes.
200-kilometre-an-hour winds enough to topple over this petrol station, while this vehicle was flipped into the air and then tossed down onto another car. It has been 150 years since this part of Florida was in the eye of the storm. Monster rain and strong winds cut power to 250,000 homes. Idalia was creating her own electricity as she approached the Gulf, captured in this striking image taken from space. But despite pummeling America's Sunshine State, it could have been much worse.
This morning, the fast-moving storm came ashore in Florida with wind gusts of over 80 miles per hour. So powerful, they toppled this massive service station awning in Perry, Florida. Near the coast, homes were destroyed or cut off as the much-feared storm surge inundated structures left standing. The storm surge in Cedar Key, topping 8.5 feet. Tampa Bay, spared the worst of the storm, still saw a storm surge of 5 feet. Many residents near the heart of the impact zone cut off, forcing high water rescues. At least 2 deaths are said to be related to the hurricane. Tonight, with sustained winds still reaching 70 miles per hour, people along parts of the Carolina coast are on alert for heavy flooding.
This morning, the eye of Hurricane Idalia has moved on from Florida, becoming a tropical storm overnight, but still wreaking havoc in the Carolinas. In Charleston, South Carolina, tide levels reached more than 9 feet. Charleston Harbor overflowing, while nearby, severe winds sent this car flying. The storm surge also flooding the Isle of Palms, and Idalia left behind major flooding in Florida as well, turning streets into rivers.
It's going to swallow up the whole town. I've got to get the cover.
Idalia made landfall Wednesday in Florida as a Category 3 storm that spanned 350 miles in diameter. Drone video showing the aftermath in the town of Steinhatchee, where homes and boats were submerged. Strong winds ripping a roof off of a home, while high tides causing violent waves to slam onto highways. And at one point in Cedar Key, the storm surge surpassing 10 feet.
It was the biggest that we've ever seen.
Maximum winds at landfall were near 125 miles per hour. The Big Bend area has not seen a hurricane of that strength in 127 years.
This is a giant pine tree that has crashed into a home here in Perry. There was a family inside.
Governor Ron DeSantis saying recovery efforts and cleanup are out in full force, tweeting that his mansion in Tallahassee also saw some damage from a 100-year-old oak tree. The family uninjured. As Florida reels through the aftermath of Idalia, the storm barreled through parts of Georgia with winds reaching 90 miles per hour.
There's been a heavy impact in South Georgia with heavy rainfall and heavy winds.
Before moving to the Carolinas. This morning, new concerns over flash flooding along the coast as the wrath of Tropical Storm Idalia
Beach, where landfall happened. Very vulnerable coastline here that had not been tested in more than a century. A lot of people left. They're now coming back, and it's probably mixed results on what they're finding, Britta.
Yeah, you know, it really depends on who has a newer built home and who has a home that is a little bit older. Talking to the residents here this morning, they've shared with me how they lived through the storm of the century, which was March of 1993. It's also known as the no-name hurricane. That impacted Keaton Beach dramatically, and so the building codes were changed at that point. And now 30 years later, the homes that went through the change fared pretty well. Lots of damage, lots of repairs, but they're still standing. Homes that did not are definitely hurting. Tommaso, my photographer, if you can try and zoom in on the top of this house over here, smaller home, down to the ground, not lifted up. You can clearly see the roof completely peeled back. That's some of the wind damage that we're seeing. Water did get into that structure as well, but most of what we're seeing is really the surge impacts. Here comes some officials right now. As you can imagine, this road has gotten really busy this morning. They've cleared off the surge debris, and probably starting around 9 o'clock is when we started seeing convoys of people come in to take a look at what is left behind. I want to show you this fence over here, Amy. You know, it's interesting because, of course, it is pushed down by the power of the water, but it is facing the Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of Mexico is right there. It's about, 200 yards.
The good news from here is that most of the buildings, from what we can see, survived, at least structurally. I'm sure they have a lot of cleanup and a lot of flood damage to deal with, but this isn't like what we saw in Fort Myers Beach.
Huge, yeah, Jim, remind me, you were in Eagle a year ago, right? Weren't you?
Horseshoe Beaches in Florida was one of the hardest hit counties, seeing the direct impacts of Idalia when it hit the coast as a Category 3 storm.
Behind us, some of the flooding video that shows the extreme storm surge in that area. We head now to News4 Jax reporter Vic Micolucci, who's in Horseshoe Beach tonight, who spoke with residents who decided to ride out the storm there.
If you want a picture of the damage here in Big Bend, just take a look. This is someone's living room. It's in a home that was lifted off the foundations in Horseshoe Beach and then moved about 100 yards from where it was to the road. Now, a man named Lynn, a fishing captain here in the area, let us in. This is his house. His father actually built it way back in 1955. So this home has seen a lot of storms, but nothing like this. Bedroom there, bathroom there, utility room there, all of it is gone. There's really nothing to salvage. The good news is he listened to authorities and evacuated. Yesterday, he went inland off of this peninsula, and that could have potentially saved his life. Only one resident here decided to stick out the storm. They are okay, but the mayor said if people had stayed, we would be looking at fatalities. Right now, in this small town of about 400 homes, 40 to 50 are destroyed. I want to step out. Our photojournalist Chris O'Rourke is working hard to show us the visuals, and this is just one of dozens of examples. Look at this power pole. It is now inside the home, and residents here believe that this home would have continued to float down the road if it wasn't for this power pole. We have been all around. We met a neighbor named Hope